Welcome back to Huawei Routing and Switching Elite Training for HCIE. Today topic we are going to discuss on RIP. Let's start our part 5.
Okay, so we are going to advertise this to our network. Okay, and we are going to just run on the S100, but we should not run on any other network. So in another word, we are going to use our import command. All right, so the requirement on the question here is that we only will enable R1 to send unicast network, and we only need to run RIP on S100. Okay, let's do it now. So let's do a RIP. Okay, so let's undo the summary. We are not going to do a summarization because by default summarization is enabled. We use a version 2. Now this is very important, so we are going to use a unicast network. Okay, we are going to enable the 192.168.1.0 network. Okay, so this is what we are going to enable. Okay, and because that we want to just run on unicast only, so we have to do a silent interface on S100. And furthermore, we have to enable the 10 network without enable the interface, so we are going to use the import route direct. Okay, so this is the actual command that we have enabled on R1. So let's go to R2. So in R2 we do the same thing, RIP, undo summary, then we have the version 2. Now peer is 192.168.1.1. okay, network is 192.168.1.0. we are going to do a silent interface on S100, and we are going to import route direct. Okay, there you go. So now we have just to enable we just enable the RIP. Now we are waiting for the RIP. Okay, so now you can see that the RIP has been propagated from R1 to R2. Okay, so if I'm going to do a ping to 10.0.1.1, as you can see, it's pingable. The next requirement is to ensure R1 receive only 4 routes, namely 172.16.0.0, 1020 and 30. So as you can see from here, we have 0, 0, 1, 0, 2, 0, 3, 0, and 4, 0. So we only require 4 of this route to be available in R1. Now the solution for this is that we are going to use filter policy. Okay, so we are going to filter only allowed to have 1 to 4 to pass through to our RIP. So we are going to filter out anything that is not 1 to 4. And we are also going to use the IP prefix. So let's look into the solution. So on R1, let's do a display RIP1 route. As you can see that I received quite a few routes over here, so I will only allow to have 172.16, so that's the requirement. So let's configure our IP prefix. Let's give it a name. Okay, so we have an index 10 permit. So I'm going to permit 172.16.0.0 with a mask length. As you can see from here, we are going to use as 22. Alright, greater equal 24, less equal 24. So I have a prefix here. Display IP prefix. Okay, there you go. So next I would like to go into the RIP, and I'm going to use a filter policy, and I'm going to use the IP prefix, and the prefix name is called prefix 1. Okay, and I'm going to use then import. Enter. Let's check our result. Display RIP1 route. Okay, so I have a the route here. Okay, so you can see that these are the route that I have, and you can see that this is under the garbage collections because I'm actually filtering it, and you notice that the cost is 16. So what I left will be this. So when I do a display IP routing table protocol RIP. Okay, so there you go. Okay, so this is the requirement. Okay, so the last requirement on this case, we have to ensure R1 import route to network 10xx0/24 into RIP. So we did that just now using the import route direct, but we need to advertise only one summary route, which is /16. So we are going to summarize all this using the /16, and we know that for us to do that, we are going to use a RIP summary address. Okay, to R2. So perform the configuration using the list command and prevent the summary route from being learned through S100 again. So basically they are looking into the loop prevention, and for us to do that, on the RIP summary address we have to add a command called avoid feedback. Okay, so let's look into the solution on how we can do it. So let's go back into our R1. Okay, so remember just now that we have our prefix there, and before we do anything, let's go to R2 and see whether we receive all the route. Okay, yes we do. So once we have configured, we should receive only /16 on R2. So go back to R1. Now first we are going to allow only 10.0.0.0/16. So let's create a second IP prefix. Let's do an IP prefix 2, this time index 10 permit 10.0.0.0 with a 16 subnet mask. So we are going to filter. Okay, we are going to do a filter policy. Sorry, we are going to go to RIP 1 first. We are going to do a filter policy IP prefix 2. We are going to export, okay, to the S100. Okay, and we are going to do a summarization. So on the interface we are going to summarize. So before we go to the summary, so remember that we have our prefix number 2. Okay, and we do a filter to export. So on the router 2, when I do a display IP routing table, as you can see that I'm actually filter every single one. Alright, because we have not do any summary yet. Okay, so just one more time, you can see that I have nothing here. Okay, so I'm going to do a summarization because the filter has filtered every single one of them. So when I do a display IP prefix, okay, that's number 2. As you can see that has denied all of the 10 network. Okay, so let's just go into the interface S100. I'm going to do a RIP summary address 10.0.0.0. Okay, we are going to use a /16, and always remember that the requirement is that we have to make sure that the summary route, we have to prevent the summary route from being learned through S100, so we use that avoid feedback. Okay, so this is done. So let's go back to router 2. We do a display routing. Okay, so there you go. Alright, so this is our /16. So let's do a ping 10.0.1.1. You can see that it's working. So that's the summarization, and that is all on the case number 1. So on case number 1, just to recap, so we configure our frame relay. We use our peer command to use on the update packet using the unicast. Okay, we use the IP prefix to only allow /16. Okay, and we use the filtering. Okay, say the filter policy, we use it on the third and the fourth option here. Okay, so the third and the fourth requirement, we are using the filter policy, but on the last requirement just now, okay, just to recap back, on the last requirement, we also use the RIP summary address. Okay, because the requirement here is to, the requirement is to advertise as 10.0.0/16 to R2. Alright, so that's where we use the RIP summary, and we also filter out the all other network. Okay, so we use the prefix list. This is the prefix list that we actually filter. Let's look into the case number 2. So we have a new topology, company C. Company C run RIP version 2. Okay, and company C has the following requirement. So we have 4 requirements over here. Retain existing configuration and add necessary configuration. So this is very simple. R1, R2, and R3 are connected through a switch, and they are having 192.168.1 network. So we have .1 here on R1, .2 on R2, .3 on R3, and R3 also have 172.16 network attached to it. Okay. Second requirement is to configure authentication using Huawei authentication. Okay, and the password is called Huawei. Third requirement is to enable R1 to receive only route to network with the 24th bit 1 in 172.16. So this is a bit tricky, so we have to do a bit of a calculation, and we are not supposed to use IP prefix with the list command. So typically this will be the exam format, all right, because they will limit you to only use a solution that is required by Huawei, and ensure that RIP update packet are sent in the broadcast. Okay, so let's do the easy one. So I have a topology already set up properly. So here we have R1, R2, and R3. So right now I'm in R1. So let's do a display IP interface brief. Okay, so I have 192.168.1.1 here. So there you go. So we have router 2. Okay, so let's do a ping to .1 just now. So number 3. So this is number 2, can ping to number 1. So can we ping number 3? Okay, so very simple. All right, so we are going to enable the RIP version 2. So I already configured this to save time. So display CCRIP. So it's very simple. So we just enable the 192.168.1.0 throughout the network. Okay. All right. So it's very simple. That's on R1, and this one is on R3. Okay. So let's look into the next requirement. Configure the Huawei proprietary authentication mode to ensure network security and set the password to Huawei. So we are going to enable the authentication mode, and this is the proprietary authentication. Now first we are going to go into the R1, and R1 we are going to go to the interface gate 000. So we are going to use a command called RIP authentication. Now remember that they need to use the MD5. Here they need to use the Huawei authentication. Okay, and the Huawei authentication based on this explanation is called usual. Okay, so we are going to use the usual, and the password is called Huawei. Alright, so we are going to just copy this, and we do it in the rest of the router. Okay, that's on router 2, and now is in router 3. There you go. So the authentication is done. So next we are going to look into the requirement. Enable R1 to receive only route to network with the 24th bit 1 in 172.16. Now you notice that the network over here we have 172.16.0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, avoid using IP prefix and use the list command. Now if you look into the network here, we have 172.16.0. So we look into the 24th bit. So 24th bit is in your third octet here. Okay, the third octet, and here we have all the 0. So all the 0 here is all 0, so they require number 1. So we need to retain here. This is 0001. So this is 10. So this is we don't need this. So we want this. Okay, so basically we just want the odd number on the third octet. And for us to solve this, we can use this particular prefix. Prefix is not allowed, right? So here it said that prefix is not allowed. Then we have to use the ACL. So let's use the ACL So let's go to router number 1. Okay, so we are going to use a default ACL here. We are going to use a standard ACL. Let's start with 2000. Okay, so we are going to say that rules permit source 172.16.1.0. okay, 00254.0. okay, so we actually filter based on the requirement. So 00254, so this is 00, we are going to match. So 254 is 11110, the last one is 0, so we are going to match number 1 over here. Okay, and in the RIP we are going to apply the filter policy 2000, and we are going to import. Let's check our routing table. Okay, so we have 1 and 3. So early on we have the rest. So if let's say we go to number 2, you should have all the routes. So let's double check here. Display IP route, protocol RIP. There you see. Okay, so this is without the filter, and this is with the filter. Okay, so that is our requirement. And lastly, we need to ensure that RIP update packets are sent in the broadcast mode. So we know that this is the RIP version 2, and RIP version 2 is in multicast. And for us to configure in a broadcast mode, we need to go to the interface, and we are going to specify that the mode that we are going to use is a broadcast. So let's have a look here. When we do a display RIP 1 interface G001, okay, sorry, this is supposed to be 00. Okay, so you can see that we are using a multicast. The requirement over here is that we have to use a broadcast. Okay, so we have to use a broadcast, and for you to do that is that let's go into the gig 000 RIP version 2. So as you can see from here, we have a broadcast and multicast, and default is a multicast for version 2. So we are going to use a broadcast, and I'm going to use the same command throughout. So I just do a copy and paste on each of the router. Okay, and I'm going to paste it there, and on the router 3 I will also paste it there. Okay, so if I'm going to go back and double check on my router 1, now you notice that I'm using a broadcast network. Okay, so I have fulfilled all this requirement, and that's our result here. So let me show you that is on R1. I have the authentication, I have the broadcast here, and this is my filtering. Okay, that's my filtering, and this is my ACL. Okay, so just a review. In this video I already went through the RIP principle. So we already see most of the RIP configuration which is relevant to HCIE, but definitely there are more in the headx file that you should look into. I also show you some of the troubleshooting. We look into 2 cases, case number 1 and case number 2, alright, the full configuration. And now let's look into the exam preparation. Now, if you want to prepare for your HCIE on the RIP preparation, always practice, okay, including command in the system view as well as the RIP view. Now it's important for you to know how RIP behave when we are using RIP over the frame relay. Okay, so also need to be familiar with the policy configuration. So during exam, headx will be your friend, so be familiar with the headx. Okay, so do most of the example in the headx, look into the display command and the debugging command. Alright, so thank you for all of your time watching my video. You have a good day. Bye.
Thanks for watching. Please do not forget to subscribe to our channel.